So good morning, everybody. That was not loud enough. There you go. There you go. You need, we need this persistence, you know, we need that motivation from you and energy. Exactly. Okay. Live here at in the beautiful city of Miami at GCCM. Just before the holidays. So I hope you're going to enjoy it. New business models to meet the cables and ISP, future connectivity and digital demand, a mouthful. So we're going to look into the new business models addressing future market demands, what's happening, what's going on, and so on and so forth. And with this, of course, you're not here to listen to me, but to the executive guys here who's sitting next to me, which I welcome very warmly. And thank you for getting your time and sharing your knowledge with the audience here. And I want to give them a quick minute to introduce themselves, so you know who's who, and then we'll just go into it. Rafa, if I may start with you, welcome.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the quick introduction. My name is Rafael Vanegas. I am Gold Data's CFO. I have been in the industry handling finance, HR, and anything that is number related for the past 17 years. I have been with Gold Data for the past 11, and I am part of the board of directors of the company. Gold Data, it's a fast growing company that is located here in Sunrise, headquartered in Sunrise, and that has presence in it's a technology company focused in telecommunications and telecommunications infrastructure. And we have different locations in Latin America, and we're headquartered in Sunrise, Florida. And I'm very happy, proud to be here, and hopefully I can answer all the questions and interact with this wonderful panelists.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Hi, Takahiro Sumimoto from NTT Limited. I'm SVP Marine Cable, head of submarine cable business of NTT Limited, headquartered in the UK. And I also serve as CEO of Pacific Crossing, the owner and operator of the Trans-Pacific Cable PC1, and I'm based in California since 2010. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Welcome to you as well. Alejandro?
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Alejandro Cabral. I'm sales engineer at Infinera. My job is basically work with submarine carriers, helping them to design and deploy the submarine networks. I'm basically a technical aspect of the design. And I've been working in this submarine industry like about 10 years for now. It's amazing how long it is. But yeah, so I have some experience on this industry and in particular on this region.
Okay, thank you.
Morning, everybody. Francisco Dominguez. I have the responsibility for the sales engineering group in what we call the Americas International, let's say, hub within the Americas. So that covers Canada all the way to the Patagonia. That allow us to interact with all sorts of different customers. The subsea operators obviously are a big part of our customer base across the Americas. And in terms of my experience with subsea customers, a little bit more than 10 years, I'm going to say. I've been in telecoms for about 27 years, and I've had the opportunity to participate in numerous, let's say, subsea-related projects for the last maybe 15 plus years.
Okay, thank you very much, and again to the audience, thank you so much, guys, for being here and joining us. And again, I hope it will be, let's say, an interactive session. So if you have any questions, please raise your hand, and we'll get your questions answered. All right. So let's hit off. Rafa, taking care about the finance. So you're actually checking if Axel is not spending too much money, right? And you know what they say, the people who laugh the loudest, they agree, right? Sorry, I had to. And good seeing you as well. So, I mean, looking at the new business models and what is arising, and sometimes the word is, I mean, the phrase is too big. It's too, we're not really changing. But what we do see around us, especially not only here in the Americas and in LATAM, but also Europe and Asia, we see that due to the demand, the change in the and or the adoption of, let's say, new business models or creative, let me put it like this, creative modifications to business models, we do see. So and looking at the topic, what do you see around you, Rafa? And did you in Gold Data had something where you said, well, over the last couple of years we had to change, or in the future we foresee some changes? What is your take on that one?
Yes, thank you for the question. Well, one of the most important takes that I have is that the new the latest years have been the hyperscalers, the OTTs that play a big impact in the industry, and all the demand that comes from services that they request, right? So I think a lot of the drive for new businesses and for the new business models come from the demand, the huge demand that comes from the OTT and the hyperscalers. Another one in the traditional market in which we've been involved for the past 20 years that the company has been around is the bandwidth connectivity. Traditional bandwidth connectivity prices are dropping. Price erosion is a big challenge.
Don't tell me.
So we have to make sure that we keep a lot of the overhead on track, so the margin is not compromised, and we come up with new disruptive ideas, for lack of another way of saying, so the business models keep us serving the industry the way it's expected.
Or selling even more services, or cross-selling, and to keep the margin in the company. How do you see this? Well, what
A lot of times, it comes down to being more creative with the products that are, the companies are putting out there, bundling up, coming up with managed services, more specialized services, cloud services. There's a combination of things that need to be done in order to, add value to what we're offering, or like the value proposition that there is out there, so we can defend the price and the margin that keeps the business alive.
Okay, thank you, Takahiro. From NTT point of view, I mean, Rafa was so nice already to bridge this actually to my second question, and those are, let's say, the challenges we will see. So maybe you can combine it as well, and later on we'll go into the opportunities which are there. But what do you see around you with regards to the changing of the business models, and maybe you can share something with the audience.
Okay, thank you. There's a reference with regards to OTTs, and certainly OTT are important customer bases, and they are competitors in a submarine cable business landscape. Also, we work together, to build the cables. So they are competitors and the business partners. And as for the submarine cable business, submarine cable construction business scene, it used to be that it's a full turnkey system where everything is prepared from end to end, including fibers and terminal equipment. Now it has completely changed to open cable, which means that each participant, whether the fiber owners or the constructors, prepare their own subline terminal equipment. So, and the OTTs prefer the obviously open cable. So that's the changes that I witnessed in the past 12 years.
Okay, so you're saying that they're preparing and they're decommissioning in High Island. Welcome, please take a seat, and thank you for joining us. So I can imagine that if they do their own planning, I mean, to get in the open cable business models, to get the planning, let's say, sort of structured in a way that they can all work together. How is that? Are those some big challenges you see? Or is it going easy? Yes. We're in telco. It's never easy. Yeah?
Right. I mean, when there's a full turnkey system, full turnkey well, full turnkey, then, we could see from end to end. But when we construct only fibers, then, there might be challenges to be kind of harmonized in system wide. But now that the choice of SLT is up to each participant, so suppliers may have difficulties in the
Don't tell me.
being maintaining the quality. Who knows?
May I
Okay,
add
thank you.
something?
Yeah, Francisco, please jump in.
I would say clearly the way that we work both with the service providers or the traditional service providers as well as the OTTs have evolved significantly from 10 plus years ago to where we are now. They used to be end customers. They are much more participants nowadays in terms of the definition of the architecture for the project.
And sometimes they even think that they know, right? Which they not always do, correct?
Right. So their interests obviously play a big role in terms of how the network is supposed to be built. In the past, obviously, we used to talk about point-to-point connectivity, let's say, between one country and another. Nowadays, it's all about interconnecting data centers, and that drives obviously where and how new cables are being built, in how many other, let's say, intermediate places those cables may be open, call it, so that traffic can be dropped. And not a minor, obviously, element in terms of this equation. They look into how the combination of the latest generation of fiber optics, the number of fiber pairs, the type of subsea repeaters, as well as the coherent modems, can reduce costs for the network, not only day one, but obviously over time. So the conversations with them are very different in terms of planning the day one, as well as the growth for the network, right? They come with very stringent demands from the get-go.
Okay. Yeah, please jump in.
So yes, I agree with Paco and with Takahiro. I think that open cable was the big disruption in the submarine industry or environment.
Are we happy about it?
Yeah, and I think that is because it makes sense. Makes sense for everybody. Of course, the operator can pick and choose whatever they want, whatever it is the best in their field, and it makes sense to disaggregate the web plan from the SLT to pick and choose whatever you want. And this standardization clearly specifies that demarcation point to make it clear for everybody. So that's the big disruption. The other one that I'm starting to see is that is coming is in a very early stages, but it's like a trending, is a spectrum sharing. That is I think that spectrum sharing fit perfectly in the portfolio of operator when they now they only have two options: selling capacity or selling the complete full fiber pair. So in some cases, for people or for customers or even other operators that are looking for resiliency in another route, backups, and maybe for some reason a few 100 gigs are not enough, but doesn't make sense to be the owner of the whole fiber pair. I think that spectrum sharing fits perfectly for that specific opportunities, right?
Okay. So, having kicked off, what changes in, especially on the business models we see and are rising, and some challenges which were named already. So, Rafa, going a bit more deeper into demands, what are the current and future market demands and challenges, and which strategic opportunities do we see? So let's go now from the glass half empty to the glass half full, please.
So I think the glass half empty is price erosion is a big one. We all know it, and how we can be creative about defending the price. But I think the big opportunity that there is that there's a huge growth in the demand for services. There's that data services in the region. There's a lot of room for development in Latin America. That's a lot of data centers are being built. And there's, like I said, hyperscalers, OTTs, demanding services. So I think that's a big opportunity. So if
the biggest demands, the largest demands you see out there?
the way we see it, yes, the way we see it, yes, and there's derivatives that come from it. So there's that. The way we see it is that there's going to be the biggest demand comes from that, and there's the traditional ISP demands, but all of that is gonna create an ecosystem around those data centers that are being built, and it's gonna drive that demand towards the big data centers, that data center hubs. So there's an opportunity there for growth, and I think there's that's the architecture of the network plays a big impact there, that to keep everybody satisfied and for the standard of the services to be up to par with what the market requires.
Okay.
So he mentioned about Latin America, and the NTT is present in the Indo-Pacific area. And currently we see the capacity shortage from India to the US. So, before talking about price erosion, we have to, immediately construct a cable in the Indo-Pacific region. Now we are constructing MIST cable from India to Singapore. Intra-Asia, it's Apricot cable. And we also announced the construction of Juno cable in the Trans-Pacific. Total 30,000 kilometers, capacity 750 terabits. We have to immediately construct the cable. Otherwise, we can't keep up with the demand. And the existing PC1 cable should be full in a matter of years. So that's the opportunity that we see. And the OTTs are certainly they have huge demand as well. And the challenges that we may have is it is extremely difficult to find the suitable landing points everywhere. In Singapore, in Japan, in the US, especially in the US, there's the environmental regulations, which might jeopardize the landing of submarine cable. And we have to advocate that submarine cables do not impact environment. That's so we continue to advocate. Yep. And submarine cables do not impact the environment, and we have to continue to advocate. And that's the challenge that I see. Thank you.
Well, it's actually, if you think about it, it's actually a bit stupid, because if the landing is actually sort of, I wouldn't say jeopardized, but made a bit difficult because of the climate or green factors, whatever. But after the landing station, we will have, let's say, a data center, right? So, but the usage of the people who are, I'm just throwing a curveball here now, who are against, or let's say are pro, let's say we have to be as green as possible, but they don't, let's say, decrease their usage, because the usage in a data center, how green is that one, right? So before we say, hey, you know what, we have to watch, let's say, whatever obstacles on the landing station, everybody has to look into the mirror, right?
And
is that not the
can we?
curveball?
Yeah, and I think
because we need, I mean, let's face it. Normally, I mean, I'm 57, so when I 20 years ago woke up, it was like coffee, and for the rest of us, nothing. Hopefully no calls. What you do now is you wake up and the first thing you do, you're on your cell phone, right? You're on your smartphone. So even before coffee, you did already probably 10 emails or answered 5 messages in the bathroom. Sorry, guys, but it's what it is, right? And everybody can do everything with one hand right now. So, correct?
Mostly. Yes.
And don't cut it out, because this should stay in. No, so it's true. So, I mean, our usage is huge.
Yes.
And it's only the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Everybody tells me it's only the beginning. So tell me, Francisco, there are
From-
discrepancies.
From my perspective, the submarine industry was one of the first examples in the telecommunications world where sustainability was introduced. Not because it was obviously agreed at the world level that we needed to do something about it, but it was not possible to continue to grow using the same type of solutions that the industry was able to offer back then. So when you think about the evolution of the technology, being able to support obviously a number of times the capacity that the cables were initially designed for. So we're talking about cables that were designed in a number of cases to support 40 channels at 10 gigabits. When the coherent modems were introduced, we were able to open that door and offer with the first generation 4 times that capacity with less electronics, with less power consumption, with less use of space. So now we're talking about technologies that can support currently up to 800 gigabits per channel. So there's a radical, I want to say, revolution when it comes to the amount of space, the amount of power that and electronics that are required to offer a solution to the tune of 80 or in some cases 90% less compared to what we used to see versus older generations. Maybe half, we wanted to, let's say, look at where the industry was 5 years ago, 7 years ago, but it's been radical. Another element that is very important that was touched, the landing stations used to be the cathedral where the subsea cable used to terminate all the traffic. With, again, the new technology, we now can extend, obviously, the service to the endpoint that is important to the end customer. So the landing station all of a sudden is not the biggest problem. It is still a problem, but it's not the same. We don't need, obviously, a huge building anymore because we can extend the traffic all the way to the data centers. So when you look at all of those elements, clearly on the subsea space as well, the amount of savings have been huge in all aspects, right? And as I said, way before it was politically correct to start talking about sustainability.
Right. And to add on that, I think that that's pretty accurate. Every time that you make effort to extend the life of a cable, submarine cable, I think that you are helping the environment. Of course, you can disconnect some cables that are maybe at the end of their life, but with the help of the technology that Paco just mentioned, the industry was capable of extend more than 25 years cables that everybody thought that were done. So I think that's very important, and I think that the submarine industry is one of the best industry taking care of the environment on that side.
But let's be honest, that's also easy because there's a huge amount of cost and investments on it. So if I can sort of recommission, let's say, a cable with new repeaters in between and whatever, and I can, drag it another 10 years. I mean, that's really interesting, right? So bridging this a little bit to let's say the money side of it on the investment side, Rafa, what's your take on this? But I mean, talking about a return on investment, what do you see that they're happening? What are the new things? What should we look out for? What can you give the audience from your point of view? What's happening there and what we should look out for? Well, what's your take on that?
Thank you. From what we've seen, there's a challenge with this, and it has a lot to do with what you just mentioned, because it's basically like you have two alternatives. Either you do a full investment and try to ensure the biggest IRR for the investor, which is not easy because what the biggest players out there are willing to pay is not that high. So that's a right. That's capped almost, So that's one thing that we're seeing out there. And then there's the factor of why don't we, go extend the useful life of an existing cable and set up, with the use of the technology that was mentioned. A lot of times makes more sense for the return of investment that is expected from the investor side. So obviously what happens with this is that eventually this useful life is not long enough. So there's definitely a need for it to have a new one that ensures not only 25, hopefully 30, 35 years of useful life if it's combined with the technology that is going to be developed. So our take in this is combining the selling of the infrastructure and maybe combining it with some other things to make it more attractive for the investors and for the business not to go under pretty much.
Okay. But you quickly mentioned that there is a huge, let's say, issue, especially between LATAM and India. Now, you mentioned already that you're working on something between India and Singapore, but when do you think, or what do you foresee, will the demand be even bigger from LATAM, vice versa, towards India or Asia, actually, and how to solve it? But I mean, yeah, putting new cables, but that is in 5 years. Because if I want to order a ship now, and I know Orange has two ships, Orange Marine. I used to work for those guys, and you remember, Marco? Good old days, eh? Good old days. I mean, if you wanna, order a ship now to do that, you have to wait 2 to 3 years. So how the hell are we gonna answer the demand? So,
Okay.
what's your solution?
All right. So,
Not your fault, eh, if you don't come up with it.
well, we are upgrading the existing cables, and thanks to the technologies, compared with 10, 12 years ago, we can expand the capacities and multifold, so that we can meet the demands for the moment. But we anticipate that it should be full, so that's why we plan a bit earlier and constructing new cables. Also, of course, we work with OTTs who should have huge demand, and our business does not end upon the construction completion. We have to maintain the cable. So when it comes to business, we have to maintain the cables, and we have a good history of maintaining the cables. And so we can monetize our know-how if someone else wants to land into a cable landing stations. So we can monetize wherever we can. We expand the capacity so that we can monetize more. We can monetize more. 100% sure that the existing cables have more than 25 years life. So we upgrade the existing ones and we construct. So we go on both ways. That's what we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Please.
Yeah. In terms of getting more capacity, one of the topics that I'm starting to see a lot is because the technology allows it, the technology is ready to do that, is what is called margin monetization. Basically, what it means is that I don't want to go so deeply technically because I want to bore everyone. But
I love finance, so
Yeah,
please move ahead.
but basically,
My job.
when you deploy your waves in your spectrum, that is the resource, the most important resource that the operator has. You deploy your waves, you put your commissioning limit, you have your margin, you decide the margin that you want, that you are comfortable with. But because the spectrum is not completely flat, you're going to have some places where the margin is minimum and some places where you are going to have extra margin, additional margin. That is useless right there. So you cannot do anything with that. With new technologies that, for example, waves that allows different baud rates, you have a different channels with different baud rates. You can put the exactly size of the wave in the particular spectrum where you have extra margin to convert that margin into revenue. So I think that that's one of the things that we are seeing as a trending, because the technology is doing that. And the only thing that you have to take care of is do a good planning of your channel plan. Okay? So that's one of the topics that everybody in the technical part and technical in the operator is trying to get ready, right? To get ready with a channel plan to allow this kind of market of monetization.
You know, when I hear people talking about, with all due respect, Alain, you know this from me, but when I hear, yeah, planning, you know, it's getting itchy because we don't have the time for it.
Yeah.
Do we? I mean, do we have the money for it? Yes, it's around there. Do we want to spend it? It's probably tightening a little bit on the finance, especially inflation, geopolitics, and whatever. So finance is tightening, but it doesn't mean that it's not there. So the investments is there.
Yeah,
But aren't we just, sorry, but aren't we not taking too much time on the planning? We know what's going on, guys. We know what's happening. The demand is huge.
yeah. The good news with margin monetization is that the planning of the channel plan came from the vendors. This side of the table are the
my
ones
right
that are
side.
helping a lot to the operators to do that job, because we have internally we have the tools and the people that can simulate the
Exactly.
fiber pair in a better way. So you can give the information in advance to the operator, and the operator at that time decide what they want to do. But I think that this combination of helping the technical people at the operator side is making the life easier for you.
Well, that's actually what I wanted to say, because this is one of an excellent example, actually, because you're helping the operators not and the other people who want to invest not to delay even further. So, and of course, it's in your interest, which I understand that that's where we're all in the business. But I think this is a very excellent example to do this.
It's a great example of things that we were not able to do with older, let's say, technologies. And obviously, nobody expected to see the shortages that we have suffered when it comes to components, right? Affecting everyone. But
Still, by the way,
that technology obviously now it's much more intelligent. We have many more instrumentation is what we call it, as Alejandro was referring. And whether for short term or longer term, we now have much better and deeper understanding of what's happening in the network real time. So different types of services, as they were, let's say, mentioned, can be introduced that we couldn't in the past. And for the type of challenges that we see, nothing is obviously black and white, and every network would be different. The answer for one cable in the Pacific in terms of how much we could add in terms of capacity is going to be different than the answer that we may get for a route between the US and Europe, let's say. But in every case, that's the important part, the technology allows for this analysis to be undertaken so that service operators can be prepared to respond in case they need and monetize, as we said, more of their capacity, help obviously some of the other friends that they may need help at some point in time, and avoid again situations where, like you said, the end users unfortunately suffer because the service is not there for them when they want it, right?
Exactly. Thank you. So what you just mentioned, Alejandro and Francisco, is an excellent example actually on how to work together and how to partner. And then Takira, you mentioned as well, working together and partnering. So what do you think? What are the different partnership models that we see, and especially what about the OTT and the IP transit players?
All right. So when we construct cable, either we form the consortium or the SPVs, form an SPV, and they should participate in that consortium, and then pay the invest a fair share for the fiber pairs or the capacities. That's one way. or we compete from with a different route. That's what we're witnessing in Trans-Pacific. And as for IP transit providers, if they come to the consortium, should be welcome. But what we see is more OTTs are more active in the participating in the consortium rather than the ISPs.
Okay, thank you. Anything to add on that, Francesco?
Well, I would say that the other element that we're seeing when it comes to the interaction between different companies, now specifically highlighting, for instance, the subsea or the wet plant, as we call it. We have now similar solutions in the subsea space compared to what we have seen in the terrestrial space for the longest time. So ability to reroute traffic electronically is something that the subsea space have never seen before. With new cables, with new technologies, we can do that. And why is this important? Because it allows for, again, the right amount of electronics to be deployed at the right place, which obviously will translate into the right equation for everybody. If someone wanted to, let's say, connect Brazil, Miami, New York, and one of the companies participating in the project just wanted to bring traffic from Brazil to Miami, electronics would allow us to do that. And the rest of the traffic for the other, let's say, participant would continue all the way to, in this example, New York, without the need to add electronics and everything that is driven out of more electronics in a single site. So now you can think about, in this example, express services, and express services are becoming much more relevant when it comes to latency. Some customers are very, very driven by having the lowest latency possible type of service. Others want the maximum capacity. The beauty about looking at how this industry has evolved from my perspective is that you now have elements that can contribute on one end or the other. And when you look at the combination of them, truly it's a different world, I'm going to say, compared to what we used to see in previous years.
Okay. Anybody else, gentlemen? You want to?
I think what's wonderful what he just said is that the versatility that it brings to the table when it comes down to the business models, because it allows to, fine tune the model for it to make it more attractive for the investor. So I think that's where the biggest thing is what is the time to market. We have to move from planning to get it going, because there's going to be a backlog of projects that needs to be addressed for sure.
No, because for instance, Alan is here, CEO of Telecom, and thank you for joining us. I mean, Formula One in Brazil, Sao Paulo. I mean, if he cannot deliver, what will happen to him? Target time to market. I mean, and
Yes.
Formula One, and we did this when I was in Orange in France. I'm talking about more than 50 years ago, but I know what the stress is. And target time to market is everything. And if the demand is there, let's not forget, are we not in I think the most beautiful industry in the world? I mean, even when there was, with the pandemic and everything, thank you so much. With the pandemic, everything, I know it's tough times for everything, but being in pharmacy, being in telco, aren't we sort of lucky on this one?
So. Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
the demand is huge. We know what's coming. So what's hitting us, we think we know what's hitting us for the coming 10 years. Which industry can predict this? You tell me. So talking into, let's say, challenges is fine, but having the showcase you mentioned with educating, telling, let's say, the operators and the investors, the virtualization of, let's say, the future, what can happen in the models, is a huge step forward. And you agreed with me on this one. But I mean, having a future with us, you know, where we know it can only be bright. I'm sorry to use again an orange slogan of the old of the past, but it is, and it's just up to us, I guess. How do we fill in the gaps? And yes, sustainability, you know, environmental friendly. We're working on this. We're doing this. We're taking our part, but we should also tell the people and educate them. I'm coming back on that story, that even the people who are, let's say, telling us to be, let's say, most sustainable, you know, they're using, you know, everything in the cloud as well, which eats a huge amount of energy, right? So we also have a task to educate the world outside our, not only wholesale or telco or TMP industry. We need there we have a task as well. So moving actually sort of to the closing, and then maybe Rafa, you want to kick off. Is what do you think we can expect? What's out there in the near future? I know you don't have a glass ball. We do not. We all don't have that one, unfortunately. Only your wife. But tell me, holidays is coming up, honey. I predict that I'll get a new credit card. Is that the thing, or is that too old-fashioned? It is, right? Throwing another curveball. It is, but so she does. So but later on, maybe we can. So you can prevent me of having the good argument not to, right? So Rafa, please kick it up. What's your outcome for the well, let's say the near future? What is your takeaway to the guys?
What I see for the near future pretty much is that a big change in the demand of data services exponentially. It's gonna and the money's out there. There's probably not enough projects, and we have to kick them out and make them happen. We got to get them going. So I think the companies that are able to do that will be the ones that will adapt, like they say, you know, adapt or die. So we'll have to like quickly adapt to what's coming, because the demand's going to be out there, and the winners are going to be the ones that are able to understand the time to market and the standard that is needed out there. That's my take.
So you're talking about that we also need to be, let's say, people creative,
Yes, absolutely.
you know, to
100%.
to answer that demand,
Yes.
and to make sure that our planning is, let's say, as fast as possible in our target time to market.
Totally.
Okay. Takahiro? Okay.
So the I mentioned the capacity shortage in the Indo-Pacific area. Some statistics say that it should be 25% increase in the Trans-Pacific, 18% in the intra-Asia, 10% globally. So we take that in 3 years to year on year, somewhere in the short term. So what we need to meet. So that's why we planned a couple of years ago to construct the new cables. And as for a green aspect, we need to factor in the procurement of energy source should be diversified, that the commercial power, to be competitive and sustainable both ways. So that's what we are doing and what we foresee.
Cool.
Yeah. From my point of view, I see like a yin and yang. I am very pessimistic on the global economics, but on the other side, I'm very optimistic on how.
You just killed that by saying you're in the most beautiful industry in the world.
Yeah, I am very optimistic on how our industry has a growth, an incredible growth, and the submarine industry, and in particular the region. I see for example, I think that this year Latin America and the submarine market is growing double digits, which is amazing. I think that it's because one of the factors could be that the bigger players, the Google's, Amazon are landing in our territory, Chile, Brazil, and it's bringing business.
Because a lot of operators didn't pay attention.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that's
and I think that they are bringing money with them. And we are starting to see new cables, new launch of cables every week, every month, cables that were not even imagined before. Cables that goes from Argentina to US one shot. Now South America is connected even with Europe, with Africa, and we have pending a cable connecting Chile with Australia, the Humboldt. So the interconnection of South America in particular to other places beyond US is growing. I think that is there is business right there because there should be attraction for that. And I think that the money is there, the market is there, and I'm very optimistic on the coming years.
Wait until Africa's really opening up, guys. You
Right,
know what will
right.
happen?
Right,
Uh,
right, absolutely.
So thank you. Thank you, Ale. Francesco, some famous last words?
Famous last words, not related to my wife.
No.
Because it's being recorded. I mean, I agree with everybody, right? We continue to see, and many projects are public. A number of them are still not in the public eye when it comes to investment. But what was mentioned in terms of, as an example, NTT, what Alejandro just complemented in terms of new projects, there is no shortage of projects happening. That will continue, obviously, to happen as long as we see the OTTs needing to connect, obviously, more countries, more places, depending on their plans. And that will translate also into at different paces, in my opinion, helping different countries, because we'll see that information, obviously that content now moving into those different countries. And we know that connectivity, there are multiple examples of that. We want to use the US in terms of the broadband, let's say, plan, but that is happening globally, should make it better for everyone, right? Not, as we said, all at once, all at the same time. But in my opinion, that's obviously where we can see good examples of how significant the next round of cables will be for the world. So what the industry has been able to contribute, in my opinion, will continue to not only keep pace, but will come even more significant moving forward.
I hope faster. No. So thank you. Any question from you guys? For this gentleman, I mean, Alan, please. We'll give you the mic. Thank you, Aurelia. Thank you.
You guys have said that it can extend the cable life, right? So we know today that what is the extension? How long can we extend? And on the capacity also increase, I understand there's investment involved, and that time that it extend, that also plays a role on your return of investment. Let me just finish. And adding the piece of you upgrading a cable system, going into the green aspect, the ESG. Is there any project that was awarded ESG credits for, not laying another cable and actually, just replacing the system? And that way, your return on investment can be actually higher, and it can actually sell that ESG credits.
Okay. Take sort of a disadvantage into your advantage. That's what you're saying, right?
Exactly.
Rafa, maybe wanna? Yeah. Okay. Please.
You want to start? So when it comes to the examples that we were talking about, to extend the life of a cable, basically the infrastructure, the cable and the subsea, let's say, elements would remain the same. The technology at the endpoints, what we call the coherent modems, let's say, would allow you to transport more capacity. So we have had numerous cases where cables were reaching exhaustion, vamos a call it, so 80+% utilization. And through the introduction of higher capacity, let's say, coherent modems, we were able to extend the life of that cable and work with the customer in some other, let's say, cases where they have combinations of what we call older or legacy cables, as well as newer cables, to move some of the traffic and then allow for more of the newer, let's say, electronics to be introduced in the older cable, so that you can free up and gain back what Alejandro referred to as the spectrum. So the spectrum is the deciding factor that will tell you how much capacity you can allocate in a fiber, let's put it this way. And by removing older generation electronics, you can extend. We've seen examples of cables that were supposed to be decommissioned more than 10 years ago. In this region, we can talk about the Caribbean. You have multiple cables that are very old. We also have multiple cables in South America, Americas 1, 2, and they're still operating because of some of the solutions that we have been able to work with them. And the answer obviously would depend specifically on the type of project that we were talking about, right? It's not going to be the same for everyone, but opening the door will be the same for everybody.
So how much, because one of the things I got out of Alan's question is, so how much can you, I mean, on the optimization of the cables, let's put it like this, how much could we gain out of it? I mean, it's a 10%, 20%.
Oh, so capacity wise, remember guys, we try to at least highlight a couple of examples, right? And I'll pass it to you so that you can obviously complement it. But we talked about 10 years where we have multiplied from, let's put it this way, 40 channels at 10 gigabits to, let's just say, the same number of channels, to make it simple, at 100 gigabit to 200 gigabit to 400 gigabit. We have examples in the region where we have new cables that are running 650 gigabits in terms of channel capacity. So you can see that the amount of information that you can potentially extract from a cable can truly grow very significantly. And depending on your plans, that may give you 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. What we found as an industry as well is that when those technologies were introduced, the subsea vendors were not ready to immediately change their plans to decommission those systems that were planned for 15 years of life. So the industry had to revisit what was acceptable as well to continue to support those let's say, investments. And for the most part, if we're not talking about the first, truly the first oldest generation type cables that you cannot do much with, most cables have been upgraded. So multiple years and multiple times the capacity.
Yeah, and multiple generations of modems. So because when you are talking about extending the life of a cable, we're talking about a cable that maybe started, or the original design was done for 2.5 gigabits waves, okay? So, and in a fixed grid. So then technology allows you to change to multiply by 4 and then to get the 10 gigs, then the 4 gigs, again by 4, then the 100 gigs, and then whatever the cable can support, 400, 600, depending on the length. So at the end, depending on the cable and the situation of the operator, you can find cables with maybe at least 2, 3, or maybe 4 generations of different modems in the same cable. So that's the way. Of course, the last there is a limit. This is channel limit, okay? And we are reaching that. Eventually, we are reaching that. We are not growing to 4 times again. So we did in the past. The channel is too close to again multiply by 4. But we are still getting more capacity in a very less increments of 10%, 20%, depending of the generation of the models. But at least we're still getting more capacity, of course, until the channel limits is reached.
Okay.
So the whole idea was to
part of
yeah.
the question. So sorry, Alan.
Yeah.
Because do we have any examples on sustainability where the sustainability, let's say, won it from, or the model or the concept
Yeah, in a way, you're not passing another cable, so you're not impacting the environment again. So that's why, I don't know if at any of these projects, anyone was able to get credit for, ESG credit or E credit, right? And going into your question, which is accelerating, the deployment of those cables, that can perfectly accelerate because those ESG credits today are tradable. And at the same time, I'm very worried with the digital divide in this world, where the cables are landing, what information people have and how that affects people in economically. If we have that aspect where, companies can actually take the cable a little bit further away for communities and countries that are today on a blackout, that might help us as humans.
And that is one great example of things that we're trying to do when it comes to connecting, obviously, call it the subsea operators, as well as terrestrial service providers, so that you can bring a solution to where that solution is expected. And if we can address, obviously, like you pointed, the digital divide, even better. But when we were asked the question about the future, so I don't believe the way to go is to continue to think about my project being submarine and somebody else's project being in a country. If we expect, obviously, to create change, I think we have to work together. We have to have an ecosystem, as opposed to the isolation that we used to see when it comes to that demarcation, to say, this is mine, that's yours, and we'll only talk when we have to come to the same room. If we don't do that, it's going to be very difficult, obviously, to create solutions where you need it, when you need them, right? Because somebody else will have a different interest, and likely the economics will dictate what's going to happen, right? That's my opinion.
Please.
Pleasure to see you again.
Likewise.
We discussed a few things here today, which are great in terms of the economics, the impacts that we're seeing in the industry, how we utilize the assets that are already available. All those things are important, concerned with, the lack of demands that lack of, availability of cables and everything. So when you look into total, the whole spectrum of things that we discussed, we didn't touch. You touched quickly latency, which is a big drive for what's coming from 5G and all the other technologies coming as well. And how you guys are coping with that pressure. And number two is, how about substitute technology? We discussed a lot about the cable industry, but there are other things that are coming, and how that affects this industry, how it affects what you guys do, things like low orbit satellites and things that can be complementing and solving the issues rapidly, that we're not waiting for 5 years. So how we cope with those two things?
Let's see how much time I have to try to talk about this, but 1 minute.
And the problem,
Starting now.
he knows a lot, so he can't speak for hours.
Starting now. So you touch on 5G, and obviously there is the us as users 5G aspect, right? So we have 5G enabled phones, so we get better reception, so we have the latest generation of phones, but we haven't changed much the way networks are built. And obviously we can talk about what is happening in the States or in the world. It's fine. Then we can talk about the expected enablement of next generation services through 5G that will impact, let's say, the industry, whether it's manufacturing or medical or the metaverse, right? For those cases.
And the aggregation of all of that into the cable industry as well.
Of course. So the traffic interest for those services is expected to be much more local than what we see in terms of content at the moment. Let's say, if we want to use the World Cup as an example, right? So it's happening on the other side of the world. We're all watching here. That requires the subsea cables to transport that information. That is not coming through satellites, right? Much less when we're talking about, again, in that example, high definition video and some of the experiences that some of the service providers are trying to generate for users, right? So you're going to see a combination, in my opinion, of services that will continue always to run through submarine cables. And you're going to see, we expect to see, an increase in terms of new services that are going to be more local, which are expected to be living, for the most part, in what we call now the metropolitan or edge data centers, which are going to be closer to the end user, so that you can have a Yep. I agree. So I don't think it's going to be a substitution, right? We're going to see a mix, and obviously we cannot forget, we didn't talk about it, but security, right? So that's huge, right? Huge when it comes to what's happening with information these days. So that will also be a part of the equation. Subsea as an industry is already, let's say, playing a part in there, but it's not going to cover what's going to happen, obviously, inside a country. So there are many elements, obviously, in this equation. I just don't believe that the satellites alone will replace the subsea cables or affect, because it's too much information. In my opinion, the use of the type of satellites that we're seeing being launched or implemented will address some of the regions that have no connectivity or expect to have physical connectivity for whatever reason in the short term, but not to the extent of the type of traffic and amounts of traffic that you see coming from subsea cables. That cannot be provided by satellites, right?
And let's not forget that. And at the end of the day, goal, we don't aim to more than 2% of satellites. That's something. So we can talk about satellites, we can talk about everything, low orbit, high orbit, all fine. But look at this. It is what it is, and it will not be big, it will not be a replacement. It will be an add-on. That's my thing. It will be an add-on, especially for landlocked countries. You know, we do not have, let's say, sea cable access, or the terrestrial cable is, you know, the copper is being stolen out of the ground. No, you can laugh about it, but
and the fiber. South America as well. South America as well. Yeah.
Well, we know what is in copper, right? Likely there's gold, right? So there you go. Talk about scarce products and assets. No, so I hope that was, let's say, an answer to your question. And we are here in Miami. It's a small thing, but we are on a road, and on this road is, 5Gs and all this other stuff. They will come to it. We have one panel discussion here. Helping myself here. Yeah, so we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about all different aspects as well, because it's not, we cannot get everything in 1 hour-ish. It's impossible. We need a couple of hours to discuss this from different angles. So you're more than welcome there and 2 o'clock after lunch to discuss it. I'm going to be presenting something from that. You know that. So it's going to be one. I know. So guys, I would like to, let's say, call it a shot. For now, I would like to thank Rafa. Thank you so much for being here, and all the best of luck with the goal data. Because you are all over the news, so good luck with that. And always a pleasure and honor having you. Alejandro, I'll be close to the headquarters in Italy, so my information of your company is that you'll get it. So you talk about latency here. So thank you, and Francisco, thank you. My regards to Ricardo and all of you. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
The guys are here, so they're touchable.